So, after years, months, decades of waiting, the Empowered podcast has finally arrived. That's right, I have come up with the term empowered, which means I am a fantastic human being. If you're tuning into this by accident, my name is Simon Miller. If you go to it's Be-Mpowered.com. That's B/Empowered.com. You'll get more information. But this is my debut podcast after being away for a little while. Now, for whatever reason, I decided that if I was going to do a podcast, I'd like it to have a gimmick. I'd like it to be somewhat novel. So each week I'm going to have a guest. Sometimes I'm sure the guests will repeat themselves. I don't have that many friends. And what I'm going to ask them to do is pick a subject. And within that subject, they get to talk about something that's sort of relevant. So if we're going to do games, which I believe we are today, you'd imagine someone would talk about Alien Isolation. But the guest I've got on, who knows? And then you talk about something personal to them, like Neptune's fucking pride.
God damn it, this is my list. Stop it.
And then a news story that has caught their attention recently as well. Now, I'm sure you've heard his voice. It's the man that we all secretly hate, even though he thinks he's loved, but he's not. A lot of people would describe this as the hashtag flatmates they've been waiting for. But damn it, that's not what this is. Chris Bratt, they already know it's you because you couldn't keep your giggles.
I tried my very best.
And you failed miserably. It's because you think I'm such a funny guy and you've missed me these last few weeks.
I think I left when you said that we'd been waiting for the Empowered podcast for years, which I, for one, have certainly been waiting
and then couldn't remember
years for this.
And then couldn't remember the name of my own website.
Yeah, that was also very good.
Which is a great start. But it is Be-Mpowered.com. That is B/M, obviously stands for Miller. Powered.com.
The thing about that name is, right, I know that you're going to do this from now on. You're going to kind of, when you introduce that, you're going to have a little joke about it and say, oh, isn't it a silly name? I know you're really proud of that name. I know that deep down, you're very happy with that.
If you go to any internet browser right now and type in Millard.com, that takes you to my website. And I was depressed about that. I hated Millard.com. A future guest of this show, Brett Phipps, came up with that. And I shouldn't really insult him because he came up with a name and I had nothing. But Millard.com was terrible. And then...
what was the tagline? Where things get milled?
Where things get milled, which is just shit. And then the other day I thought, I wanted Empowered.com, but it was taken. So now it's Be-Mpowered. It's good. It's positive. Yeah. It's reassuring. I'm getting the message out there, and I'm making sure that people feel good about life, Chris. Just because you're a negative Nancy doesn't mean I want my listeners to be.
This takes me back, Simon. We used to podcast on a weekly basis.
Well, Chris,
it's very nice to be back here.
Well, I'm glad
sitting in opposite you.
Yes, right. We're definitely in the same room, and I'm definitely not staring at a strange picture of you where you're wearing headphones and a green T-shirt, and you look ginger in that photo. So I have no idea what that is. That's
the thing, Simon. You may have moved miles away, but we're still here. We've still got this connection.
Exactly. Well, like I say, I'm very, very taking my. No, this is all lies. I don't mean this at all, but I'm going to say it regardless.
Okay.
I'm very happy that you're my first guest on my podcast, and you're obviously more than welcome to come on whenever you like. And if people want it, we could even do a separate podcast to this where we just yell at each other.
I'll just show up when Brett comes on. I'll just barge in. I like the sound of that.
No, that sounds about. I'm glad to see nothing's changed, Chris. Same old stuff. All right, so Chris, I'm going to go out on a whim and guess the subject you picked today is games.
Hi, Simon. My name is Chris, and I'm here to talk about video games today. Yes,
video games. Okay, and now for our older listeners, what's a video game?
A video game is it's kind of this thing that I have to talk about on a daily basis.
Right.
It covers a wide range of topics.
Is it responsible for all the violence in the world?
That is one semi-popular belief.
Yes.
Which is, of course, nonsense. Now, video games are wonderful. They're like films, right? But you're in them and you control the characters. And it's just...
This is amazing. You're actually explaining video games. You've taken a joke and you made it serious. That's really...
Sorry, my bad.
No, that's weird. What are you doing? Just laugh it off, man.
Okay. Video games.
All right.
What are they all about?
Okay, so
No idea.
I've explained the premise to you. But this is the first time we're doing it. This may not work. This premise may die on its arse. So I
like the idea that this first podcast has that, and then you just never do it again.
Well,
that sounds quite good.
But I like the idea of a podcast that has a structure each week. So you're going to tune in. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people I have on will want to talk about games, which is fine. But we can talk about wrestling, we can talk about sports, horror movies, monsters, whatever. As long as the guest is smart and intelligent enough to, break that down into 3 different categories, and it could work well, or it could die on its arse. But there's only one way to find out, Chris, and I'm glad that you're my guinea pig, as you are in all things of life. So you've chosen video games. I feel like I need sound effects. I feel like it's a quiz show now. All right.
Jingles, sound effects, the whole works, I expect.
Okay, we probably won't get any of that because I'm lazy. but I'll do my best. There will be, if you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a badass logo that steals Metallica font right now you're looking at. So that's good. All right, so we'll start with the first one, and that is you can tell me which game you've picked. What's the topical game you'd like to chat today on the Empowered podcast, Christopher Bratt?
Well, as I've seen a sneak peek of you playing this very game yourself, I thought it would probably be a good one to bring along for the listeners at home. I've brought Alien Isolation from the Creative Assembly.
So everything that I made up at the start of the podcast is actually true.
Oh yeah, absolutely spot on.
Okay, well fine. Well, that does make sense. I mean, it should be up now. My one cowards player of Alien Isolation. Mm-hmm. So we may as well start with that because if you've watched it, you may not notice that I'm not that scared. It's very tense, and I'm a bit stressed out about it. But I don't know whether it's just not a scary game or whether PT has come along and ruined it for everybody else.
I actually think something that might have had an impact, and this is something I find all the freaking time with games that are supposed to be very personal and atmospheric. I think it feels completely different when you either play it with friends. I played The Evil Within the other night. I watched Steve play it, one of the guys at work, whilst there was a bunch of us around the sofa, all being wise guys and cracking jokes and just completely ruining his experience.
Yeah, I don't think McCartney planned it. Yeah.
Or the other thing, as I think you found yourself, is doing it on camera and feeling like you're having to present it yourself can sometimes change the way that you interpret that game. I'm sure you'll still get scared. In fact, I've seen that video. I know you will still get scared.
I do get scared in the video. But I do take your point about, because obviously you're trying to not be entertaining, but you obviously got to keep talking and stuff. And
sure.
all that.
Whereas a big part of that game is, like you yourself sitting in a darkened room, which I think you did. You got that right.
Yeah, I turn the lights off.
Sometimes it's best to have headphones on just so you've got no kind of audio distraction whatsoever and just completely immerse yourself in it, which is hard when you're doing video. And it's something
I agree. And the audio design of that game is really good. Like it really is. Like even when I was watching other people's videos of it, I thought, the 5.1 and all that stuff, I heard stuff behind me. And I thought, what's behind me? And it's
massively important, I think.
But I'm going to do this a lot and piss a lot of people off who go, stop comparing the games. But that's life. I did that with PT. I played PT and I was on camera. That was with someone else. We just ticked both those boxes. And to this day, I'm still mentally scarred by that game. It still scares the absolute shit out of me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, that PT, if you don't know, is that kind of it. Like they called it an interactive teaser, I think, but it was basically a demo that was released on the PlayStation 4 and ended up being the announcement for the next Silent Hills game. But it was this kind of weird thing where you kept walking through the same corridor and you'd eventually kind of you tried to figure out how to change your situation because the corridor would keep resetting once you got to the end of it.
Look at you being nice to people and explaining PT.
I know, right?
Making out
along the way, and I enjoyed seeing you and Dave play this.
I genuinely
things happen.
I mean, we'll focus more on Isolation in a minute because I do think it does things well. But I genuinely, and I'd like people to let me know as well if they feel the same thing, that I think PT's raised the bar so high. There's only a flipping demo that I think that it has sort of lessened other games and their impact on me, because I'm such a baby. I get scared about everything. I can play even sections of games that aren't horror games that are meant to be a bit spooky and my fucking adrenaline goes through the roof. But I've done 2 hours of Alien Isolation. I have felt on edge. It's very tense. The atmosphere is constant, but I thought I was going to die playing PT. I thought I'd die. And I haven't.
Not as in-game, as in you yourself.
No, me, Simon Miller. I genuinely thought would drop dead and have a heart attack. And that's not how I want to go. But I genuinely worry that might happen. Whereas this game, how much have you played? Actually, like my videos, turn off if you don't like spoilers. I don't care about spoilers, therefore I'm talking spoilers.
Well, I've played little bits and pieces from all over the game. I think actually you've already encountered the alien. I think you encountered the alien about an hour and a half in for the first time. It kind of drops down.
And I think that's a poor intro. I think it's a poor intro. That isn't
actually, in reality, that's not your first real encounter with the alien, because later on you kind of have another experience where that happens, and then from that point onwards, the alien is hunting you, and you've kind of got objectives that you need to complete within that area. But I think that's like either 3 or 4 hours into the game before you're really in a situation where the alien can and will consistently be looking for you and try to kill you.
Okay, well that sounds
which is a long time in a game where you're walking around on your own for a lot of the time anyway.
Well, I think the first hour of that game could be deleted. I really do. I liked it. I don't liked it, but I get the whole build and the whole slow, and they're trying to tell a story. But I really think, much like the start of King Kong, that was a weird comparison. Peter Jackson's King Kong. You could cut that first hour. You could really, really pull that down to 10 minutes, I think, and kind of speed that up. I get why they don't, because the Alien franchise is so loved. They want to tick as many reference boxes as possible.
I don't think I disagree with you either, because I remember when I...
you don't think you disagree with me. Well, you think about it, and you let me know.
It's difficult, because I enjoyed the start of that game, but on the flip side, when we've seen like little sections of the game when we've previewed it before, and I completely got what was going on, and I was thrown straight into the action. I'd be straight into a situation where the alien was after me, and I had to try and survive. And that's what the game is. And waiting possibly 3 hours until you get to that point, especially when you're doing other stuff like fighting against the humans in between. Oh,
screw that stuff. I hate. My two problems with that are, one, I don't think the combat is massively. There's nothing to write home about. Well, I wouldn't write home about any game. That'd be weird. My mum wouldn't care. She'd wrap the letter. But second of all, like, it just pisses me off. If that was a real situation, I guess maybe they would do this. But I just think, why can't we sit down, have a chat, and all go, look, we're being fucking hunted by an alien. Why don't we work together rather than shooting at each other when we could be shooting at that?
Fundamentally, I disagree with you guys on some pretty, big political levels. I'm not sure I'm ever going to call you my friend, but there is an alien on this station.
Exactly.
Trying to eat all of us.
So why the fuck are we shooting each other? What are we doing? What are we doing?
So someone raises the hand in the background. Also, when you shoot your guns, it makes noise, and that's kind of the core mechanic of this game.
And those motherfuckers know where it is, because when you first get in... no, but there's the area just before you meet the alien, when it drops down from its vent and it goes for a little stroll, which is really weird. They all refuse to follow you down to those sort of basement levels. Like, I'm not going down there, because they're obviously aware that and the Axel dude that you meet as well, who just turns up to be alien fodder, which is so obvious, but I still kind of liked it. They're all aware that this thing is there. Come on, guy. I get that fear. Fear, terrible, makes people do bad stuff. But I don't want to shoot people. I just want to be. It should be an alien cat. The whole, like you just mentioned, the sort of cat and mouse thing for a longer period of time. I mean, I'm just getting to that point now, so I do know what you mean, but it takes a fucking long time to get there.
But I think once you do get there, and once, to be honest, maybe the first encounter isn't the best one, but once you've kind of got a feel for how the game works and you've got a few options available, it does become something really, really cool. And like, if you're in the right situation, it will totally freak you out and do exactly what you're hoping for. It just takes a little while to get there. I think that's maybe the only problem there. All
right, so how do you feel about it overall? Because obviously, if we look at it from a review standpoint, Americans, as you know, Chris Bratt, because you made a little joke about them on VideoGamer.com.
Always making little jokes.
They obviously weren't as receptive to it as the rest of the world. But putting that aside, I mean, because there was a lot of hype for Alien Isolation, especially after the shitness was Colonial Marines. People thought, okay, they're back on track with this. What do you talk about it? Would you think it lived up to what it should have done?
Yeah, I had a few kind of moments where I thought it wasn't going to live up to the stuff that I'd seen at preview events, which is always a really horrible feeling. Previews in general are such a strange thing to tackle. You get such a small slice of the game, often like half an hour, and Alien Isolation is like 15 hours long or something crazy.
It's massive. It's such a big game.
And so I think at its best, it does exactly what I wanted. There are just maybe the pacing isn't quite perfect for me, but I think overall it's a fantastic game, and it's worth dealing with a few issues here and there. Maybe you don't like the save system that much. Maybe you. Well,
with that, what is that about? Why is there no? I get it, because it wants you to feel. It's that whole thing of, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get punished.
Yeah, so it only autosaves at the beginning of the
chapters basically. So and the chapters are big. So if you get killed by the alien, which I did a lot. Yeah. It puts you back to the bit where you plug your ding dong into the phone, which is a weird way to save anyway. But it takes you, so you can literally be pushed back 10 minutes, I'd say.
Yeah, and repeatedly as well. I think that can be frustrating, and I think the first encounter when you're really not quite sure how the alien works, and you can find yourself getting frustrated with it. However, once you get it, and when you do have those close moments, but you make it, it feels so good. Like, it's a really powerful feeling that you've just managed to escape the alien, and you've saved. You're safe for a few more minutes. Like, I don't know how they'd replicate that otherwise, but Yeah,
Well, true.
it's maybe not perfect, but I think in those moments where the game is at its best, it's one of the best kind of survival horror games I've played. I think
I like it because it feels different. Like I'm going to do a play Evil Within. I think that's going to scare me more than this. I don't know why, I just do. But Evil Within to me, and I think I read a review that said this today, so I can't remember. I think I'm stealing it a bit, so I apologise to whoever that was. Evil Within feels like the last hurrah of survival horror games that we're used to. PT feels like something that was going to be embraced by everyone. And Alien Isolation kind of sits in a nice little niche by itself, which I do think is impressive. It doesn't really, fall into any real sort of stereotypes that you expect from a survival horror game. And it doesn't feel that progressive at the same time. It's very interesting. It's good. I like it a lot. But yeah, I don't think we'll see another game I don't think this is going to spark.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think there's maybe its own little subgenre, right? Where it's you against one creature, and although obviously there's other stuff like the androids and the humans to deal with, the main game is focused around that, kind of like Amnesia did on a smaller scale.
Yeah,
I think that works and it'll have a place. It might, to be honest, if it might not be for the particular type of survival horror that everyone likes. I think you will actually like The Evil Within just because
I'm a baby, right?
What? Sorry?
I'm a baby.
Yeah, and I think you'll be freaked out by the kind of it just constantly throwing weird shit at you. Whereas with Alien Isolation, you know when you buy the game that it's going to be you and an alien, right? That's true. You get that. In Evil Within, it's just really, really, really random with the kind of freaky stuff it throws at you, and it kind of. It covers all its bases by saying this might not be the real world. Who knows what's going on? It's a crazy horror game,
and
it gets away with stuff there.
I don't mean this offensively. I mean this is just a fact, but it's true. It's Japanese.
Oh, it's Japanese
horror games freak me out fucking so much more.
Created Resident Evil.
Exactly. So
It comes from an interesting place there. Yeah, I reckon you'll actually get on with that quite well. I say get on with. I mean, you'll dislike playing it, but
I don't think I'll be able to do. I think I get through 10 minutes of that. My gut feeling tells me. I was dissing it ages ago. I was saying stuff like, "Yeah, fucking watching trailers now. I don't give a shit." And now I'm like, now it's actually here. It's like I don't know if that's true, Simon. I think this may scare the absolute life out of you.
Yeah, there are a few fucking weird bits in that game.
Did it scare you?
I think
because you played PT for 5 hours by yourself because you're borderline insane.
Yeah, well, it's a different experience. I played The Evil Within with the other people in the office who were around at the same time. I think if I'd been playing it on my own, I think it would have, yeah. I think there are a few interesting bits in that. PT scared the hell out of me, by the way. I keep getting this accolade because I played it on that night on my own.
You were like 2 o'clock in the morning in a dark office playing what I
fucked me out. Like I wasn't. I didn't have like loads of fun doing that. Don't worry.
And you walked home as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Fuck my. Were you not terrified that you were going to get, I don't know, fall into a corridor or something like that?
Simon, I'm an adult. I mean, no, of course not.
Yeah, you're not. Fine. You're Christopher Bratt. You're not an adult. You got ID'd at Eurogamer. Okay, so I mean, by and large, you're obviously a big fan of Alien, then, which is nice to hear. Because I know you hate AAA games. Yeah, you like independent titles, so I'm glad that this AAA game managed. Well, I say that because.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. So. The next part of the podcast is where we transition, where I give the guest a chance to teach me about a game.
All right, something a bit personal to myself.
Are you actually going to talk about it?
I think it's... Yeah, you know what? Yes, I am. I'm going to be talking about Neptune's Pride, a game that I've somewhat championed in this office, and it was when you were here. And
let's caveat.
I've had nothing but derision.
Yeah, let's caveat this with that. I mean, Chris plays Neptune's Pride obsessively. I would describe it as obsessively. And I would say at least 10 times he tried to explain to me what it was and I ignored him. To the point I genuinely still don't know what it was. So yeah, you're right. I'm going to sit back and I want you... But you have to remember that people don't know this game. Yep. So I want you to explain Neptune's Prime. And don't forget, I'm hoping that a lot of people listening to this like explosions. They like big guns. Because that's what games are all about. Okay, so your personal choice is Neptune. I
sold the idea of Neptune's Pride to my mum and dad, and they're well into it now. Like they don't play it, but they can talk about it with me and enjoy.
You're in a cult. You're in a cult. That's what this is. You say mum and dad, but it's actually two Joanne and Brian that you meet in the Cotswolds. All right.
Okay.
Start small. We'll get bigger. What is Neptune's Pride?
So Neptune's Pride is a strategy game.
I can see it. The ratings are going down straight away. You can play for free,
which is often a really scary concept, but it doesn't fuck that up, thankfully. You can play it in fact, you do only play it in your browser as well. So it's kind of one of those games where when you sign up to a game, you're invested in it for probably a few weeks. So it's good that you can access it on your phone when you're in the bathroom, or I don't know, at the PC work when you're supposed to be doing.
Nobody needs to know that much insight into your life, Chris.
Oh, come on. Are you telling me? Right, never mind. Okay.
Actually, I'll tell you a quick story. Oh my gosh, it is the Video Gamer podcast. But I'll tell you a quick story. I once, it was in university, I was on the toilet, as we've just hinted at.
Excellent.
And I was...
Was it...
Go on. Was it what? No, go on. What? Was it what?
Was it a number 1 or a number 2?
I didn't actually think you were going to ask. Jeez. Well, it wasn't.
What people are thinking about right now.
It was a number 2 because does anyone play there? Nobody plays their games console when they were doing a weed. Do they in the toilet? I don't know.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
I'm still a postcard.
You haven't got to that point yet.
All right. So over there, I was playing my Game Boy Advance. I was playing either Oracle of Seasons or Oracle of Ages. Why am I telling the story? I regret this instantly. And I played it for so long that after I was all good to go, I stood up and fell over. Because the legs had died because I was leaning on them for so long.
Oh, that's already much worse than whatever I'm going to talk about.
Exactly, but let's keep going. Before everyone with Neptune's Pride, they'll forget that story.
All right, so you're playing. It's a strategy game. You play in the browser. It's meant to be played pretty easily anywhere. And when you first see it, the reason I think I've struggled to really sell this idea to you is because you've seen the game before I got to talk to you about it.
It looks so. It's just dots on a screen.
It's dots and numbers on a screen, and that is fundamentally what the game is. The kind of the core aspect of it. You control ships that jump around these dots, and you're to win the game, you want to control the majority of the dots on the screen. It sounds and looks pretty basic, and sounds like a child's game. Yeah, all right. It feels a bit like a board game, actually. I think it sounds like one as well. No, we said child's game, not board game. It sounds like a game for a 7-year-old. Keep talking. Right. Okay. But the kind of beautiful thing about it is that you've got your own little empire. It's a game set in space. You need to control most of the stars to win, and everyone else in the game. You're playing against other human players who are also controlling their own little empires. And you start off with just a handful of stars. You kind of spread out really quickly, and build up in pretty basic stuff. It's like industry, science, economy on each of these stars. All the kind of base mechanics are really, really simple and straightforward, up until the point where you start meeting other players and everyone starts drawing up borders between your little empires on the map. And at that point in the game, it becomes this really, really cool thing. And I think it's probably one of my favorite strategy games as a result, because only one person can ever win the game. But to win, you have to team up with other people and pick on smaller, easier targets. That's the only way to win. You can. It's almost impossible to just focus on your own stuff and try and beat everyone else with military might or any of that kind of nonsense. And these kind of alliances are incredible, because when you set them up, both sides of the alliance know that eventually you're going to have to screw the other player over if you're going to win, because only one person will ever win. No one's come second in that game. Or what life. Is this? Exactly, right?
Exactly. It's winners, power, empowered, be empowered.
It's a very human game in that result. Nice little... Man, you should put on a t-shirt. Yeah.
Oh, well, you may want to keep an eye out.
And so you have these discussions with players, and in the back of your mind, everyone knows that they've got to eventually betray the other player. Right. But because this is a game that ticks very, very slowly. I said that you move around stars to control them. To move between two stars, even if they're right next to each other, will take hours usually. And to cross from one side of the map to the other will often take days. So this is a game that will inevitably last for weeks. I think the last game I played was just under a month, I think, to complete. That's with 3 players? 4 players? No, that was with 8 players, but eventually people drop out and whatever. So these people, I felt like I knew them by the end of the game. I had one main ally, Yellow Sapphire, her name was. I remember her well. Yes, I remember this. I remember how you destroyed Yellow Sapphire's life. No, that's not what happened. I tried, but I failed to destroy her life. We were allies for weeks, and we've been talking to each other on almost a daily basis, because you're exchanging tech. You're talking about which stars you're going to try and take over, which people you're warring against. It's a daily thing, and you probably might only log in a couple of times a day, but it's always there. It's always in the back of your mind. So when I was forced to betray her, because I was kind of cornered. I was cornered in. There was 3 players left, and I was we had an alliance, the two players versus one other player, right? And we were going to win together. But after that, we'd obviously have to fight each other. And because I was the smaller person in that alliance,
much like real
I
life,
had to betray her. That was unnecessary. Thank you. And so, yeah, I felt terrible about it. And you do feel really bad. You feel like you've built up these relationships, and then you have to hurt their feelings with spaceships.
Excuse me? Did you just say that out loud?
I'm okay with that sentence.
Your feelings with... You should put that on a t-shirt.
Eventually, it all went really bad, and like I ended up switching sides like 4 times before the end. I had no dignity by the end of the game.
Did you win?
No, I came third. In fact, even though I tried to make sure that I wouldn't come last, I still did.
Did you come last because 2 other people screwed you over better than you screwed the other people over?
Maybe towards the very end, but I think really what did it is I kept flipping between the two. Every time I thought our alliance was starting to win, I'd notice I was still the smaller one. I'd be like, oh, actually, no, I'm going to go and speak to those guys now and team up again. And then so no one trusted me by the end of the game, and I was pretty much destroyed. And it was a really, really pathetic way to end the game. And I've been playing it for 4 weeks and talking about it either with you guys or in the game for, a decent period of time. I haven't gone back to the game yet. I love it, and I think it's one of the best strategy games I've played. It's completely exhausting to play because by the end of it, especially if you've lost in such a way, it feels you feel like you put your heart and soul into it, and then you can't do that for a little while.
Have you won a game on it yet?
Yeah, it's the first game I lost, actually, that one was.
Okay, you threw that one in there. Yeah, you threw that one in there quickly. All right, well, I get it, but this is all well and good. Like, there'll be people listening to this, and they'll be thinking, wow, that sounds really interesting. And then they'll go to neptunespride.com and they'll see it and go, what the flip is that?
You do have to have a little bit of imagination with it. And I think a lot of that comes through, this is going to really turn some people off.
The
way that you often communicate, people like to...
You're going to say role play, aren't you? You're going to say role play. Oh, it's the end of it.
I'd say maybe create a kind of character for their empire. Well, role play is a word that we can use. You role play in Mass Effect and Dragon Age, all right? Sure,
yeah, but they're roles that have been made for you. You're making this roll up, and I bet you're some elf or something with your bow of wonder. Oh, my bow of wonder that I got from the magic cave of light.
I won't lie. I started off the game. My empire was called the Bratt Confederate until I realized it sounded a bit threatening. And it just didn't sound. It sounded like I was going to betray people, and everyone knew that anyway. But you don't want to sound like it. So I think I went for something a little bit softer, a little bit. Those guys wouldn't hurt a fly.
What was it?
It's really cool. Like I think the fact that it takes so long to complete a game has a real impact on it because the game is really basic. Other than that, it's the fact that you invest yourself in it.
Well,
yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I get it. I get the investing because I think if a game swallows you up like that, and then you sort of get to the end. Either way, if you win, you're going to think, well, I've succeeded at this, and if you lose, much like Alien, the whole save system, but to a much, much stronger degree, you're going to be like, fuck, what have I just done with a month of my life?
Yeah, it's you know what, and I think maybe some of the people that would find that concept a bit weird. If you look over to like some of the Facebook games, right, they do so much wrong, and to be honest, that platform for games in general is poison, just because there's so much underhanded kind of microtransaction bullshit that you have to get through.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that Farmville got right, the reason Farmville was such a massive success is because you had this kind of thing where you'd check in once or twice a day, and it became something that it was like a recurring game that you could keep going back to and you felt like you were progressing in. It's that kind of sense in this game without worrying about the microtransaction bullshit.
Do you even pay for it? It's free, right?
Yeah, it's free. You can sign up to... There is like a membership system that you can sign up to, which it does cost something, and that allows you to create your own games with and pick all the settings, whereas generally you just have to kind of pick the generic ones or join someone else's game. But I think that's a pretty fair way of handling that. It doesn't. I'm usually really anti kind of.
I know you are.
That side of stuff,
you hate anyone making money.
It's not that. I hate people ripping people off to make money.
Okay,
in video games.
That's fair enough. Now, I still think Neptune's Pride sounds like the worst game ever made. It is. I've seen it. It is the worst game ever made. But I appreciate you selling its wares.
There, Simon. Something magical that you maybe. Oh no, we could never start a game. We wouldn't be able to get past the fact that you would immediately try and betray me. There'd be no kind of subtlety to it.
I would try and crush your empire within an hour.
Yeah, exactly, and that doesn't work.
If I hadn't succeeded, I would quit the game and go on a forum somewhere and moan about it.
Some people do that, actually, and it's always kind of funny. They don't understand, man. They don't understand the strategy, the grand strategy, the whole thing.
Maybe not, but look, I appreciate your love for it, kind of. Yeah. I still think it's slightly mental. But look, if one person listens to this, hey, I'd be happy if one person listens to this. But if one person listens to this and they go and try Neptune Pride and like it, then look, you can play a game with them. They may get in touch with you, Chris, and then you all your dreams will start coming true.
I'm not sure I'm ready to go back. It was about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I played the last game. I haven't got over it yet. I won't lie.
All right.
I wake up in the middle of the night sweating.
Wow, what a sell job for that game. It wakes Chris Bratt in the night. Well, I don't know what you're doing, to be honest.
You don't, yeah.
Right.
I'm very excited about Neptune's Pride.
Yeah, tell me about it. Well, we're going to leave that there.
All right.
And we're going to move on to the last topic of the day.
Okay.
Chris Bratt, you can pick any much like the first bit when you talked about a topical game, I want you to talk about a topical issue in-game, something that maybe moved you or has upset you, or something pathetic like Neptune's Pride.
Wow, okay, so what happened to the all-inclusive, bring along something that you enjoy and we'll
I love how
the
stuff that people don't see, like the nice sort of arranging time before we get on here, and then as soon as we hit record, it's like, you fucking piece of shit, I fucking hate you. It's not fair, you're right, but it's probably never going to change. It's just the relationship we built up, Chris.
Yep, I know. We live together, we work together, we podcast together, and I mean, it creates a bond, doesn't it?
Yeah, James Bond.
I understand that.
What would you like to talk about, Chris? You can pick anything you want as long as it's relevant.
I feel like I'm going to bring the tone down here.
All right, well, bring it down.
So, it's hard to talk about anything in video games at the moment without talking about the dreaded hashtag Gamergate.
Yes.
Kind of conversation that's going on at the moment. And yeah, it's not something I've talked about publicly that much, just because I found it really, really difficult to even.
Well, I'm honoured that you've chosen the Empowered podcast.
Well, because I feel like I can talk to you about it without it becoming really heated and angry, and you probly won't start saying things about my family or my face or anything.
I will, but they'll be completely unrelated to Gamergate, so it'll be fine.
All right, so I mean, have you tried to avoid much of this, or have you seen much of this?
I know what it is, but I've deliberately I don't get involved in that kind of stuff. It's just always been my personal choice, be it this or other things that have happened in the game industry in the past. I've always decided that it's not. I have opinions on it, but I don't feel like sharing them. I keep them to myself. I
had a similar kind of stance on it myself, although I'll get into that in a sec. Just because, if you don't know what the Gamergate kind of, I'm going to keep calling it a conversation because I think that's what it was trying to be.
Yep.
It started off as a discussion about the video games media, which is something that has I'm connected to on a daily basis, so I felt like it was a conversation I should pay attention to, and whether or not the relationship between video game journalists, like developers in particular. I think this all centered around, it started off with a relationship between some journalists and a lady called Zoe Quinn, who is an indie developer, and whether or not that those relationships were impacting the job that the journalists were doing. And it kind of, I think the idea in a lot of camps was that it was going to be a discussion about whether those relationships are damaging to games journalism. And
I mean, I think originally it was meant to be about ethics and morals.
Mm-hmm. I think there are plenty of people still trying to have that conversation, but that's not what anyone talks about with Gamergate anymore. When that hashtag is brought up or that discussion is brought up, it's about the darker side of that, which is basically we mentioned Zoe Quinn. There's been a number of other women within the games industry that received death threats and abuse and have had their private information leaked. And it's not just women. There've been male developers, people within the industry, journalists that have spoken out about it, that have been targeted really heavily. And there's been very little discussion about games journalism, and corruption is the kind of word people have used to describe what could possibly be going on there. It's all been this kind of hateful side of it instead, and it's fucking sucked. Like, it's been going on for months now, and I think some people may be hoping it would just kind of disappear and fade away, and it still seems to dominate so much of what's going on in the games media at the moment. Yeah,
I think the problem with it is that you can take yourself out of these conversations, these scenarios. If you're very smart with, if you take Twitter for example, if you play the unfollow game. You know, if someone retweets something, but I think a lot of the time, I mean, there's the opposite side of that as well, where, you know, someone like yourself, or depending on what your goals and your ambitions are, you need to be in those circles to you see what other people are talking about, or, you know, just to be, you know, embedded in the video game culture, because there is, you know, with any job, you need to know what's going on. You need to have, you know, your eye on the prize and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, it's within these circles where a lot of this stuff sparks off.
Yeah.
And trying to then avoid it is difficult, because you will get people that actively engage in it. You will then get someone that actually tries to calm it down or stop it, or even sort of swipe back, and then it just escalates to a whole nother level. So you can never, even if someone turns a blind eye to it, it's difficult for it to completely disappear, because people don't want it to disappear, basically. They want their voices to be heard.
I think the other side for me with this kind of discussion, I remember early on, because I'm very new to the games media. I've been doing the job for just over a year now, and I remember asking some of like my peers what their kind of stance on. I've talked with you about it before. I've talked with some others. You know, should we just kind of stay quiet about this because it brings so much heat and hatred in your direction if you talk about it? Or on the flip side, is it our responsibility to try and talk about it because some of the people that may read or watch our stuff may be involved somehow, or may not fully. Maybe they need to kind of have that discussion brought to light, or whatever. And I think so. VideoGamer in general, particularly the video side, I'm sure you'll agree, is like we often don't take things too seriously when we can help it. Obviously, if there's a serious matter, we treat it with respect. But sometimes, if we think something's worthy of having a bit of fun with, we do that. And I remember a few weeks ago, I did a top 10 video, which if you're not that familiar with games media, top 10 anything is a successful format. We're talking about video games.
Anything.
Top 10,
the BBC are doing it now, man. Everyone does top 10s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think, well, yeah, even if you're not familiar with video games, you'll be familiar with BuzzFeed, because BuzzFeed is the internet now.
Yeah, it does well. Can't argue with it.
So I did a video which was the top 10 social justice warriors in video games, and it was completely tongue-in-cheek. I imagine some people have clicked on that expecting me to be talking about some of the prominent figures. Now, social justice warriors, if you haven't heard that term before, is often a term that's directed at people that talk about, maybe include some of their political feelings in their coverage of video games, or I think a big one really is their stance on feminism. Like, if a lot of people that talk about feminism are branded social justice warriors, and it's supposed to be a bad thing, even though it sounds like a good thing. So yeah, I did this video just to kind of say, because I expected people to click on it thinking I was going to be talking about prominent figures, whereas in fact I just talked about some video game characters that had kind of strong social opinions. It was completely tongue-in-cheek. It was meant to be funny. I think some people found it funny, and some people really, really got upset with me for doing that. And then I kind of realized that the people that do watch our stuff, some of them at least, are maybe on maybe do have these strong opinions which I didn't realize they did. I think this is kind of a selfish thing on the part of, when you create things and you have an audience, you kind of expect the audience to be a little bit like you and share
like me. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'm a pretty good guy.
I would, if every member of my audience was you, Simon Miller, I'd be very upset because I'd never talk about Neptune's Pride.
You wouldn't get to do anything. But
you know what I mean, right? You kind of feel like, well, if they watch the stuff that I do, and I obviously talk about certain
there's a relationship
aspects,
there. Yeah,
you kind of imagine they share some of your opinions. They're almost, it's not like they're your friends, which is a weird way of thinking about it, but you think
they're
there
on
must
your
be
level.
Some kind of connection there.
Yeah.
And so when you see people go crazy about this, like the kind of the people that do brand others as social justice warriors, they exist within the audience that we make stuff for. And then I suddenly realized, is it responsible action to just ignore it? I still don't really know what the answer is there. But it freaking gets me down, man. And I do a job where I talk about video games. I should be the happiest man in the world.
Well, yeah, you should. But unfortunately, you're not.
No,
but I think that may be more than just the Gamergate stuff.
It might be a large...
a bigger problem that we need to address in general.
The VideoGamer office
but
shows no respect.
I think the other problem has, and I hate saying stuff like this, and this is usually why I don't ever join in with conversations like this, because some of the stuff I say makes me hate myself. But it is true, and that is the classic, and I know they've been around a while, but video games are still in their infancy. And that is true if you compare it to other mediums and stuff like that. This is the most serious I've ever talked about games. But it's true. And as we go through sort of generation, I know this is a bit morbid, but when about, say, 2 generations die off, be you looking at government or you're looking at whatever sphere of mankind, video games will no longer be this, video games, they will just be a part of the stratosphere. Now,
it's only like very recently that it's become kind of accepted that people other than male teenagers play video games. Like we're still in the early days of that in many respects, which is a good thing, but it kind of sucks that it's taken this long.
Well, yeah, but the problem is, though, there are still people that exist. Maybe I doubt anyone listening to this podcast who video games were introduced to them. Even now they're learning about them and they're thinking. I'm talking obviously the older generation, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And so there's a fear there. There's an inconsistency and stuff. But that also works the other way around as well. It means that as they do grow and as they find their place, people are going to question them. They're going to pick holes in them, and this is the worst thing I'll ever say, but it's true. With the emergence of Twitter and social media and things like that, where everybody has a voice, you start to realise that maybe some of the voices are not ones you particularly want to hear.
Yeah, but they become unavoidable. I think that's been a problem for some of the the kind of, we've been in the situation where we can try and avoid some of that discussion if it is having a negative effect. The people that have been the targets of this, the female game developers, in the center of this kind of whole weird campaign that's going on, can't ignore it. Like you've obviously seen with there have been 2 or 3 examples now of female game developers who've stood up against this or been involved in the kind of discussion somehow, having death threats that are sent to them, their address made public. It's pretty horrible stuff said about what's going to happen to them and their families. And yeah, I think Twitter's amazing. I'm invested in Twitter as most people that do this job are. But fuck, it means that it doesn't take very much effort for that sentiment to arrive at their doorsteps.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to lie, Chris. That's probably the most mature I've ever heard you speak.
Shit. So I do try and avoid it. It was a weird one. And you know what? It kind of came back to what we were talking about before. You said, what's a current ongoing story? Obviously, we're going to talk about video games that interest you or has impacted you. And I immediately thought, well, do I want to talk about this? Because once again, for the same reasons, is it something that we should try and avoid? And I thought, shit, no, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe if it is something to think about, maybe I should force it on Simon Miller's podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Episode.
Come on my podcast, on my opening episode, after I've taken a few weeks to sort my life out, and now I'm going to get people calling me a twat. Thank you very much.
The social justice warrior mind map or whether it is.
Yeah.
You're going to be on that.
But luckily, as I've said 1,000 times before, come at me, internet. I don't care. As I found out the other day, fuck it. Let's go all out with this stuff. People the other day on NeoGAF were just calling me a prick. Calling me a shit because they didn't like a review I once written. So
people have opinions, man. It's kind of crazy. Everyone needs to get on board with that idea.
People get mad. Apparently, I wrote like a 10-year-old, and Bethesda should hate me because I didn't write a very good review. I'm sorry, world. I am sorry that I didn't appease you. But this is getting a little bit too introverted now. We don't need to talk about that. The point being, Chris, I do think you raise a very good issue, and I've never talked to you like that before. But hey, look, I put my serious hat on.
And my heart's just swelled with pride.
Exactly. And if it's something that means something to you, Chris, and you can come on the Empowered podcast and empower. If you feel like you can empower yourself on the Empower podcast. On the Empower podcast.
Is that what you're going to do with this?
Yeah, I'm going to get everyone to talk about something like this at the end and just to say that word.
That's amazing.
Just to work in the tagline. But it's true. If you feel like that now, Chris, then you know what? Then
I certainly do feel empowered. I don't really know what that means.
It means I gave you a platform, Chris. I gave you a voice to air and to let people know how you feel so that deep down...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, see? Deep down, people know that you mean good, Chris. You mean good. Now,
I can feel the power.
Before we wrap this first podcast up, because I'm proud of your topics, Chris. I'm glad what you brought to the table today. Yep. I think it's a formula that may work. Whether or not people can do it as well as you, Chris, I don't know. So look, empowering.
To that, don't we?
But I did want to do something, obviously, and I didn't think I'd be able to do it this episode, but I decided just to sort of do it in the most budget way possible. I do want to make sure there's anything you guys want to talk about, or there's questions you want to know from the people I've got on or whatever, that you can ask questions and stuff. So, Chris, I have been to Twitter and I've got some questions for you.
Oh, fuck. I haven't been oh, God damn it. Twitter, I said that I was invested in you earlier. No, I need to get off that site.
A lot of these are weird, and I don't know what they mean, but I'm going to ask all the ones that, most of the ones that I've got so far. I won't keep you much longer, no. I promise. But Noah French.
They haven't been kind of...
No, I'm reading these for the first time. I'm literally on my phone. I'm looking at them. And Noah French would like to know...
Yep. I remember that name.
Actually, well, I'm going to read this out loud, but it's not a question. So, Noah French, what have you done? You've failed miserably. Please tell me this is like Dark Souls, but it's like Miller Souls or something. Why is that a question for you?
It's exactly that. Yeah, Miller Souls is a fine alternative name if you hadn't already found such a strong one in the first place.
I'm not fucking ever including souls in anything I do.
You've got strong feelings about that series, haven't you?
Bogeyman just says #flatmates. This is it right now. This is #flatmates.
Can you read out the tweet that you sent out, because I'm not convinced that you've asked for questions.
I just said, ever wanted to ask @theBratt as a question about anything? Reply to this, and I will ask him on a secret project being recorded right now.
So secret. I mean, what could it be?
Exactly. But we could make this, I guess, a completely separate thing. It's up to everybody else. I'll do it. It won't be the Empowered podcast. You don't get to come on every week, Chris. This is separate to you and your ego.
Shit. What was the? We had a name. What was it?
Brattler.
The streams.
No, that was not right. Brilla. We could do it. We could do a Brilla podcast.
Brattler. What the fuck?
Brattler. That's not even mine. I don't know what that is. But we could do that. I don't mind. But this is not the time to chat about this. This is not a production meeting.
Okay.
Jim Otep says, "Why do you love Dota 2 so much, and why do you mainly play turn-based games?"
Why do I make him play turn-based games?
No, why do you mainly play turn-based games?
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, I'll answer that bit first. I'm a big fan of strategy games, as you may have noticed, with Neptune's Pride, which, by the way, isn't a turn-based game. Thank you very much. The reason I like it is because there are two approaches usually to strategy games. One is real-time, where you have to move really quickly and you have to be able to press your keyboard very, very fast. I like
strategy games so I can push keys really fast. Is that what you just said?
No, the thing is, I can't do that. I'm not quick enough, and I get beaten because people have those reflexes. I like in turn-based games that I can just take a little while, take a little breather, assess the situation like a general of old.
Oh, jeez. Why?
And I don't know. I tend to prefer that in games. I don't like being rushed, you know?
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Dota 2 is just, on the other side, is just a really good game where you don't get to wait around at all. I don't know. It doesn't really fit into my argument for turn-based games at all. It's just work. An incredibly well-balanced competitive game with an interesting kind of community around it that I like to follow.
Okay, nice. Grant Thompson would like to know what you think about Long War.
Long War is a mod for XCOM, which is a turn-based strategy game.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Don't you have a video up about that?
Yeah, I do actually.
Just pimp your video. What's your YouTube channel?
I don't actually know what the name of it is. It's one of these weird things where I haven't picked a name for it. I just uploaded it. I couldn't put it on VideoGamer. People would hate that if I put it on VideoGamer.
Well, search for Christopher Bratt on YouTube and he'll be on there. Or go to his stupid Twitter account @thebratters. Or @bratters, or one of his other many Twitter accounts that he stole from girls. But we won't talk about it.
Nice, thanks for that. You didn't give me any time to explain what you just meant.
And we're going to end with Sanji, who genuinely wants to know if this secret project is porn. No, Sanji, it is not porn. Out of all the people in the world, I would not do any porn-related stuff for Christopher Bratt. No offense. I
have been spending this entire podcast looking at a picture of Simon Miller with his arm around another man. If that image helps at all, but no, I don't think there's any. I would just put these free topics along. I mean, you haven't told me.
That man is CM Punk. You didn't give much context there.
CM Punk.
Yeah.
Is he one of your wrestling friends?
He's one of my porn friends. For the record, he's not. Definitely, that's libel. He's definitely not that. 100%.
Oh yes, I've just noticed that there's actually a cardboard cutout of the man you've got your arm around behind him.
Yeah, it's like existential and stuff.
This guy's got a massive ego problem.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Someone asked you a question about Neptune's Pride as well. Comet sighted, but I'm not. We've done that. We've done that. I think
we've done that, man. I don't like that. Am I just a stereotype?
Yes. Yes.
Oh no.
I'm glad. Well, it's not. We don't want the podcast to make you feeling sad because that's not empowering.
Exactly, right.
But Chris,
I'm feeling down, Simon.
I would like to thank you for coming on the very first episode of the Empowered podcast.
No problem, my friend.
No one can ever take that away from you. You were the first guest. No matter what happens, even if this podcast tanks after 2 episodes, you will still be the first guest I ever had.
And it's your best episode as well so far.
By default, yes. This is the best episode of this podcast I've ever done.
The guest on your best podcast episode. Excellent. Cool. I'll take that. I'm empowered. Nice one.
Well, there we go.
Cheers.
There we go. Look, we've done what we set out to do, and that was to empower Chris Bratt. I will have a completely new guest next week to empower. I don't know what the subject will be. It's up to the guest, but I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. If you want to keep up to date with everything that I'm doing, you can get me at Simon Miller 316 on Twitter, or search for Simon Miller on YouTube. Chris, pimp out your wares.
I work for a video game site called VideoGamer.com, and that's where we talk about video games. That's pretty much it, really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no, nothing else.
I'm on Twitter, but you've already done that. Thanks.
Yeah, but you could have pimped it again.
It's fine. Play it low key.
Okay. Well, there's going to be outro music playing now, so maybe I'll just drown you out as you talk.
I miss you.
You miss me? Oh gosh. Oh, it's got weird. Why? We couldn't just end it normal, could you? You had to throw in weird shit and make it weird for myself and everybody else listening, didn't you?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I'm empowered.
All right. Oh, good. That's good. I'm happy then. I'm a happy man.